right.
I'm going to start with a hot take, and it's going to make sense further in the video. Belal Muhammad will be a more entertaining champion than Leon Edwards was. I know
Okay, that is not a crazy take. First and foremost, that is not a crazy take because Leon Edwards was never known for being an entertaining fight. I mean, he had a very entertaining fight against Kamaru Usman, but that was like a once in a blue moon type of performance for Leon Edwards, you know? But yeah, I don't think that saying that Belal Muhammad is going to be a more entertaining champion than Leon Edwards is a crazy take because Leon Edwards was never known for being an entertaining fighter. Even though Belal Muhammad is not even going to be a champion for that long. You know, he's 36 years old. He's going to be probably fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov next, which is going to be a murder. It's pretty much going to be, we're going to watch a murder live in the UFC whenever Shavkat fights Belal Muhammad. I think that Shavkat, being the bigger, stronger, younger guy, is going to have a dominant performance against Belal Muhammad, if I'm just being completely freaking honest. So I don't really think that Belal Muhammad is going to be champion for that long. He might have, you know, maybe one fight against Kamaru Usman or Colby Covington before he fights Shavkat Rakhmonov. Maybe he'll have an entertaining fight with one of those older guys. But against some of the younger dudes, I don't see it. I really don't. So yeah, this take is not crazy. It's not a hot take, if I'm just being completely honest, because Leon Edwards was never known for being an entertaining champion.
it sounds crazy, and it's, coming from me, someone who's been calling Belal Muhammad a boring fighter for many, many years. Why do I say this? Because Belal at least fights hard and shows urgency, pushing a pace against his opponents. Leon does none of that.
One fight.
He fights slow-paced, has no urgency if he's losing a fight, and always looks like he could fight harder, but just doesn't. Leon fights like he's hitting pads, trying to stay perfect with his technique, fights by a training rhythm, and sometimes to throw a cool combo like the 1-2 high kick. That's the rhythm and the pace that he fights at. And in fact, it goes to show, I mean, if you watch his pad work, he might be the best pad hitter in the entire UFC. There's no coincidence about it. This is why Leon Edwards is the most frustrating fighter that I have ever watched in MMA. His technique and skills are so clean. He's so talented.
For his striking. I think that, ever since we saw Khabib do what he did against another great striker like Conor McGregor, I just feel like the striking base has been taking a step back. Everybody knows how to counter a good striker, and that's through wrestling, and that's exactly what Belal did.
He has all the attributes of a perfect fighter. He has like the perfect body
for
fighting and the skills to match. But the way he uses his skills is so frustrating. Leon has amazing skills to be a truly great fighter, but the approach he takes is so mind-boggling boring to watch and always causes his fights to become close on a decision, whether he wins or loses, or closer than it needs to be. An emphasis on decision. Since that's how 90% of his fights go, most of the fans in the sport did not care about Leon Edwards too much before he beat Kamaru Usman. In fact, back then, there were a lot of fans that didn't even want to see him fight for the title. The reason why so many people didn't like Leon back then was because of his fighting style. He was always this kind of fighter throughout his entire career. But the Usman head kick completely changed it.
Yeah, okay, look. So Leon Edwards has always been a fighter that doesn't like to take chances, I feel like in the last round that he had against Belal Muhammad was literally the only time throughout the entire fight where he actually started taking some chances. That's why he almost beat Belal Muhammad. He almost beat Belal Muhammad in the last round, in the last literally 20 seconds of the fight, because he started taking chances, trying to land some elbows. And granted, he was doing a freaking good job. He was doing a really, really good job. A lot of those elbows landed, and they bloodied up Belal Muhammad, pretty much as soon as they landed, right? And yeah, I guess I can see your point, because if he would have had that type of urgency throughout the entire fight to take more chances against, someone like Belal Muhammad who was just whooping his ass, maybe, yeah, the outcome would have been a lot different. So yes, Weasel, I 100% agree with you on this. He is not a fighter who likes to take that many risks and that many chances. He's always been a fighter that likes to, fight a particular type of way. So yes, you do have a point.
The narrative of Leon into something that wasn't necessarily true. Now, he could have carried that forward, with the head kick. If he became more aggressive in the third Usman fight, was more aggressive in the Colby fight, and now here against Belal, we would have been talking about how Leon changed his style and became a much more exciting fighter. But what really happened was Leon fought like a point fighter all the way up to the Usman knockout, and then after that continued the same point fighting style and never changed. And that's the thing about when people call Leon a sniper that can knock you out with the perfect shot. But snipers don't let their wounded enemy walk off without the kill shot. Leon has always been a point fighter. He's always been a point fighter after his second UFC fight when he knocked out Seth Pakinski, a point fighter who will occasionally catch his opponent with a well-timed shot and hurts them, but they usually survive because Leon lets them. A sniper doesn't let his wounded opponent.
Well, that's the thing that's been said throughout the social media for the last couple of days, is that Leon Edwards is a good striker. He's a good point fighter, like, you know, we've been hearing throughout the video, but he just doesn't have that dog in him, that really fighter instinct to just go in there and literally beat the brakes out of his opponent. So yeah, and that's crazy to think about because, you know, there's been instances, in my opinion, where Leon Edwards, well, yeah, he should, you know, just go out there and close out the fight because it's obviously, you know, that he's dominating his opponent, and for some reason he just prolongs the fight until the fight ends, and you know, it's pretty much ending in a decision each and every single time.
Survive, right? Examples of snipers are guys like Anderson Silva or Israel Adesanya. Yes, Izzy was boring as well, but that was because of his opponents didn't want to engage him. If they did, they would walk into the scope. The only one who didn't was Strickland because he fought a perfect game plan and Pereira survived the first fight. But if Adesanya hurt his opponent, the fight was usually over, or like against Kelvin, he will try his hardest to finish. Every other opponent he hurt, they didn't.
That was actually a pretty good fight.
But when Leon hurts his opponent, there's a high likelihood they will survive. And of course, we don't have to mention
exactly. There is a high likelihood that he will survive because even though he is dominating his opponents in the striking game, he just doesn't have like that lion in him, that dog in him to just go in there and just literally finish the fight. You know, it's just something about how Leon Edwards thinks in there where he just doesn't have that dog in him to finish a fight whenever he knows he's dominating an opponent. It is what it is. You know, some fighters have that dog and some fighters just don't. Leon Edwards has shown us that he just doesn't have that in him.
Sniper. But why is Leon so boring? Why does he fight this way? He doesn't really have any primal sense of battle. He doesn't have that killer instinct. He just tries to perfect his technique and just use that. Even when he's down on the scorecards, he usually doesn't change anything. He doesn't usually try to get a finish when he needs one. The only time we've seen something like this out of him was against Usman with that knockout, which he rode off on the coattails for the rest of his career. It was the only time he did something that the fans appreciated ever. Even when he had that long win streak, which in itself was very impressive, the fans didn't really care as much. The highlights of Leon's career also include
yeah, because in the UFC it's not just about winning, right? It's not boxing, and boxing, you know, people care about, oh, he's not knocking anybody out, but at least he's like winning fights, you know, most of the time, because there is fighters like Shakur Stevenson where even though, yeah, he is winning fights, you know, he fights really, really boring fights. But anyways, in MMA and UFC specifically, you know, people care way more about how you're winning, you know, not just that you're winning fights. That's why the UFC are cutting people like, you know, Mokaev, right? Because even though, yeah, he is winning fights, he's boring as hell, you know? So yeah, you know, even though Leon Edwards was winning fights in the UFC world, MMA world with MMA fans, it matters a lot more on how you're winning, not if you're winning. So, yeah.
Nate Diaz nearly TKOing him in a fight that he was dominating, and now Belal slamming him on his head. Those are the three highlight moments of Leon Edwards' career that everyone will remember. Head kicking Usman, Nate almost finishing him, and Belal slamming him on his head.
Let me see. Is there any other moments where Leon Edwards has done anything? No, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. That's crazy.
So many of his other fights have been so incredibly boring to watch that people forget what even happened in those fights. A lot of people don't even remember the third Usman fight, exactly what happened besides him grabbing the cage. A lot of people don't remember like the sequences in the Colby fight, except the time he took him down and Colby just didn't look good. A lot of people don't remember all the stuff he did to Nate Diaz before he almost got finished. That,
true.
Like, wiped
that is very true.
Away from so many fans' minds, or the stuff he did against Gunnar Nelson, or the stuff he did against Brian Barberino back in the day, because these weren't key defining moments of his career, right? Even the first Belal fight, we remember him being aggressive and landing a head kick at times, but those are not the highlights of his career. Leon's win streak was commendable, winning the title, beating Usman twice, although the second time he beat Usman wasn't the same fighter. He did beat Colby, but Colby also wasn't the same guy. Leon did
Yeah,
great.
I mean, there's arguments for all of that. The only reason why Leon Edwards, had a successful, title defense against Kamaru Usman after he beat him the first time is because Kamaru Usman is old, and the only reason why Kobe Covington had a bad performance against Leon Edwards is because he injured his foot. So yeah, there is a lot of things that are going on right now that are being talked about, against Leon Edwards because. I mean, it is what it is, man. It is what it is.
Great things, of course, but now Belal exposed the reality of Leon's legacy. Why is that? Why is everybody finally coming to this understanding of Leon? Because he finally lost. Leon has not lost in a very, very long time before this. He was undefeated for 8.5 years. And in this sport, fans don't really...
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, say what you want to say. Yeah, Leon Edwards is boring as hell. He's a boring fighter, point fighter who cannot finish his opponents. He doesn't have a dog in him. He only managed to beat Kamaru Usman because he was old. He only managed to beat Kobe Covington because, Kobe Covington injured his foot. But no one beat him for 8 years, so that's pretty good. He got all the way up to becoming a champion and defending his title twice. He had a really, really crazy, memorable knockout against Kamaru Usman, taking his belt. So say what you want to say about the guy. In my opinion, I think that's a W of a career. Say what you want to say about the guy, but I think that's a dub.
Want to hear criticism of fighters who consistently win, especially if they are champions. So when I mentioned before that Leon is a point fighter and that his wins against Usman and Colby aren't as great as people think they are, and that he was never an entertaining fighter who also has questionable fight IQ, fans don't want to hear it because he is still winning. But it's the truth, and it's
he has questionable MMA fighting IQ, but in terms of the striking, I think it's up there with a lot of the great strikers, in the UFC currently. Not of all time, but like he's a pretty good striker, Leon Edwards.
Always been the truth about Leon. Now, Leon can change his style after that loss to Belal. If
he's not going to.
Gary, which makes a lot of sense and would be an interesting fight. Hopefully,
he's not going to. He's not going to. And the reason why is because he's too old. Leon Edwards is too old to develop anything in his game for it to be great, right? I think that he could become a better grappler. I think he could become a better wrestler, but I don't think that he's gonna change his overall game plan whenever he approaches a fighter because he's already matured. He's close. He's damn close, for him to start finally saying that he might retire, in the UFC. So I don't think that he's going to make drastic changes on his base. I think that we're going to see, Leon Edwards still being the striker that we always see. Maybe we might see some adjustments on his, wrestling and his grappling, but I don't think that his base will change at all. I don't think that he will make drastic decisions like that now that he is a more matured fighter.
He shows more urgency if he needs to, right? If like
he's not going to
beating him somehow, which I don't think he will. I think Leon should be able to get that win against Ian Gary, and even his coach, Leon's coach, was saying that Ian Gary is a good next matchup for Leon Edwards. But
Ian Gary versus Leon Edwards. Okay, look, that's a very interesting matchup, but in my opinion, I think that I would much rather like to see Jack Della Maddalena versus Leon Edwards. I think that is a much more interesting fight because Jack Della Maddalena, as we all know, has some crisp striking, and I think that he will put on a good performance against a former champion like Leon Edwards. But Ian Gary versus Leon Edwards is not a bad fight either.
Overall, Leon's skill is way too high level to be fighting the way that he fights. He could be doing so much better in his fights if he just pushed a harder pace, went for the knockout more. It wasn't so passive in his fights. He's so like absent in exchanges. Every time I see him fight, I just think of like he's hitting pads or like he's training. No, I don't want to make this all about Leon Edwards because it will make it seem like I'm not giving credit to Belal Muhammad, which I did already, Belal, of course, way better than we expected. Very strong wrestler. He is developing a similar aesthetic style to Khabib.
No, he's not.
Jab very well like Khabib did. Khabib's
no, he's not.
Probably his jab. Strong takedowns, good
timeout. No, he's not. He does not fight like Khabib.
Control on top. Is he on the level of Khabib? No, but his aesthetic, like the way that he fights, is mimicking a lot of what Khabib used to do, and it's because
I disagree.
Belal is training with Khabib. In fact, he said that Khabib developed a game plan to defeat Leon Edwards.
In terms of positions, yeah, but in terms of finding those positions, no. Khabib finds himself in certain positions to where he's able to have successful grappling is not the same as Belal. It's just not.
For him, or at least help doing so. So the welterweight division may have found their own version of Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Chill
and
out.
Belal Muhammad,
Chill
better
out,
than
bro.
ever. He's more technical than ever. He's a smarter fighter than ever. There are still some like holes in like his boxing and stuff, and maybe a bit of his control on the ground. The fact that Leon was able to reverse him a few times throughout their fight. There are some like patches that Belal should do. I mean, that's for every fighter, right? Most performances are not going to be flawless, you know. So Belal is probably going to get better after this. Khabib is going to absolutely show him where he made mistakes. And the next time we see Belal Muhammad, he's probably going to be even harder to defeat if he goes up against someone like Shavkat, for an example, which I think is the next matchup for him. The one that makes
That's a nightmare matchup for Belal. That is. I'm just gonna go ahead and be completely honest, man. All my money is on Shavkat Rakhmonov for this fight. That's why I don't think that Belal Muhammad is gonna have too many title defenses, right? Because of this man right here. If this man did not exist in the welterweight division, you know, we could say that, oh, you know, maybe Kamaru Usman is a fight away from fighting for the title again, even though, you know, I don't think that he is. This man didn't exist. I would give him that, but unfortunately, we live in this universe where Shavkat Rakhmonov is ranked highly in the welterweight division, and he is going to become champion.
Most sense, at least. And Shavkat on paper has the most dangerous style for Belal Muhammad. This is the toughest fight of Belal's entire career.
Yes.
And if he can get past Shavkat, I don't
He will
know
not.
who beats Belal before he gets too old, you know, because he is 36. So he's got to rack up these title defenses very, very quickly if he can. No waiting around for Belal. We need an active champion in the welterweight division. Besides Usman, this division's champions throughout its entire history have mostly been inactive, from GSP to Tyron Woodley to Leon Edwards. Hopefully Belal can fight another time this year. That would be great. But I don't know if you guys heard about the excuses from Leon Edwards. His coach, well, he gave an excuse and then his coach gave an excuse, and they're probably valid. So Leon said that he was tired, most likely because of the time that they fought. It was like 5 in the morning.
That's not an excuse. That is not an excuse, and I will tell you why. The reason why that's not an excuse is because at the end of the day, these people are supposed to be champions. They're supposed to be the top people of the division, and saying that, oh, just because we fought at a certain time, you know, that should not be an excuse whatsoever. So no, I'm not buying that. The people that paid, you know, money to watch this event aren't buying that. No one should be buying this, you know, because they are professionals at the end of the day, and professionals are supposed to perform at whatever given time. So no, I do not buy that whatsoever. Where do we leave off at? You know, let's just start right here.
To Tyron Woodley to Leon Edwards. Hopefully Belal can fight another time this year. That would be great. But I don't know if you guys heard about the excuses from Leon Edwards. His coach, well, he gave an excuse and then his coach gave an excuse, and they're probably valid. So Leon said that he was tired, most likely because of the time that they fought. It was like 5 in the morning, which catered to Belal Muhammad coming from the United States. And then Leon's coach said that Leon had a back injury going into the fight, so he wasn't able to train wrestling that much. I don't like hearing these excuses, man, because every fighter is injured. I'm pretty sure Belal went in there injured too. He's just not talking about it. It's always the fighter that loses that has the excuses. But I'm pretty sure Belal Muhammad also went into that fight injured in some way. I mean, these guys are going through a rigorous training camp that most people on the planet cannot go through, right? Their bodies are getting trained to the brink of breaking down. It's only logical that these guys aren't going to be 100% in their fight. And that's one thing why I don't like to hear fighters make excuses like that. Oh, I lost.
It's always a bad look. It's always a bad look if a fighter loses a fight and gets dominated, right? And then they just say, "Oh, my pinky hurts, my ass hurts, you know, my freaking elbow got a scratch." You know, it's always, it just looks bad. It looks terrible. So I feel like hindsight, if a fighter ever just gets dominated the way that he does, it's just better to just, you know, just zip it up and just say like, hey, we're just going to go back to the drawing boards and we're going to, you know, try to get better and we're going to become champion once again. You know, keep it short and simple, right? Because once you start giving, you know, all these extra stories, you know, all these other people, they're going to look down at it. So yeah, it's always a bad look. It's always a bad look whenever fighters are like giving excuses after being dominated, right?
because my back was hurting. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure your opponent's back was hurting too, man. I'm pretty sure not just his back, I'm pretty sure every part of him was hurting. That's why it's always good to just look at fighters as if all of them are going into a fight injured in some way. That's how all these excuses that come out, it's just souring the fight, you know? So Leon's coach definitely has to bring Leon in to progress his skills, maybe get him to try to finish fights a little bit more or get more aggressive at times. But killer instinct is not something you could teach a fighter. They have it or they don't. Leon has amazing...
True. Killer instinct is not something you could develop. I think that you could probably, you have to either somebody is born with it or you have to force it out of somebody. And the way you force it out of somebody, because okay, for those guys that don't do like Muay Thai or whatever, there's a certain word, I forgot the word for it, but there is some really specific type of training that Thai fighters do to bring out this killer out of you, you know. And in my opinion, I feel like, yeah, you know, you're either born with it or you have to be freaking forced to bring that out of you, to be quite honest.
Skills all throughout, right? He's a very well-rounded fighter. Good kicks, decent wrestling, good jiu-jitsu, good in the clinch, great elbows and knees. Like, the guy's solid, but he doesn't go for the finish. He doesn't have that killer instinct. And you have a guy like Tom Aspinall, for an example. Tom Aspinall and like Dricus du Plessis, maybe like Islam Makhachev, like these guys have killer instinct, especially Aspinall. Just like Aspinall.
Aspinall has, okay, look, to be completely honest, Aspinall is a completely different thing. You know, in my opinion, I think that he's a little reckless and sometimes even lucky, but it works for him. It works for him. You know, I think that he has a completely different fighting style compared to Leon Edwards. So in my opinion, I don't think that it's a fair comparison. Just being honest, I don't think it's a fair comparison. You know, given the fact that, you know, Tom Aspinall does fight at a much heavier division, you know, and Leon Edwards is a welterweight. You know, I don't think that it's kind of fair to compare both fighting styles to each other, you know, just being honest, Weasel. But yeah.
Said, if he has you hurt, you're done. You're going to get finished. You're going to get choked out or TKO'd. And you see that in the amount of finishes this guy has in the first round. But with Leon, it's like he slashes Belal Muhammad with a nasty elbow and then just looks to control on top. Like, he doesn't even go for the finish at all. He landed a few elbows, literally like 2 seconds left.
Well, I'm going to give credit to Belal here. Belal was doing a great... After Belal got hit with those elbows, Belal was doing a great job at trying to control Leon Edwards' head, right? Because how can you elbow somebody in the head if you can't see? You know, so you can even see it in this image here, right? After Belal got hit with those elbows, he was going to control Leon's head, which is exactly what he was doing. So credit to Belal here, actually, you know?
In the fight. But what was all that inactivity right before that? From the first elbow that cut Belal to him landing a few more elbows at the end of the fight. Why didn't he do anything in between that? And he knew he was losing because his coach was giving him the speech. He straight up told Leon, yo, you want me to stop this fight for you? Imagine hearing those words fighting Belal Muhammad, the guy that you completely underestimated, that your coach is telling you, hey, I'm going to stop this fight. I'm going to throw in the towel for you, man, if you're not going to go out there and finish this guy. He should have gotten amped once he heard his coach telling him that, but nothing. Like, he landed an elbow and that was pretty much it. Barely did anything with it. It was the most impactful thing he did in the entire fight, and he didn't build upon it when he absolutely could have. And Leon's in his prime, right? He's not going to be like learning new styles and stuff. He's not going to be changing how he fights. I don't think he's going to develop some killer instinct out of nowhere. Usually fighters have it or they don't.
Well, there you guys have it, ladies and gentlemen. Honestly, I do feel like maybe, you know, Belal Muhammad becomes champion or stays champion for maybe one title defense if he fights Kamaru Usman, or if he fights maybe an older guy like Kobe Covington. But let's just be honest, the boogeyman of the welterweight division being Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to end this guy's career. He's probably going to go into retirement after he loses to Shavkat. But anyways, that's the video, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, it's a pleasure. Peace out and have a good one.